Welcome to another edition of the Pearce Brothers. I'm Brian Pearce, and today we're going to talk a little bit about buffalo bore ammunition. Buffalo bore, I first became acquainted with them when I got a phone call many years ago, back in the mid-90s. Tim Sundles, the owner and proprietor who still owns the company, wanted to start the 475, or wanted to offer factory loads to the 475 and 500 line ball. And to make a long story short, we worked on them. In fact, one of the obstacles he had to overcome was the 475. In order for it to achieve any level of popularity, he needed to make sure it could be chambered in a Freedom Arms 454 or a Model 83 revolver. And the outside rim diameter of the 475, of course, this is based on the 4570, was 608 thousandths. We ended up cutting it down to 545 thousandths, ultimately to 540 thousandths. And Jack Hennington built a custom gun, figured out that this worked just perfectly, and we went to Freedom Arms and convinced them to chamber the Model 757 in 475 line bar. And of course, Tim worked with Starline Brass to develop, to get cases made, and make a long story short, he was up and going with ammo. The problem was there weren't a million guns out there. In fact, most 475s and 500s were custom built by people like John Linebaugh, of course, Hamilton Bowen, John Gallagher, and others that were, custom gun builders in that sense, David Clements, but not a big number of guns out there. And so the sales were pretty soft. And soon thereafter, Marlin came out with what was known as the Model 1895 guide gun, and chambered in 4570. And this was, of course, the late 90s. This gun's actually one of the very first 10 of those ever built. And I knew how popular the 4570 had been and was still going to become. And I told Tim, I said, Tim, all the SAMI ammo, the Sporting Arms and Ammunition Manufacturers Institute ammo, is loaded pretty soft in deference to the old trapdoor Springfields, the 1873 and 1884s and so forth. And it's like you put it in a modern rifle. We need a reload. I'd been shooting them since I was pretty young, Marlins and Winchester 1886s, and I knew the capabilities of the cartridge. So I worked with Tim quite a bit on developing a load, and he came out, and man, it was an instant sensation. He's fine-tuned and tweaked that load over the years to become better and better. But he, of course, offers a variety of stuff, including, like, this is one notable load. He's got a 380 grain mono metal bullet and very large me-flat on it. Feeds perfectly in the Marlins and other guns. Has a small rifle primer pocket because Marlins, with their large magazine tube belly, it's possible for cartridges to rest sideways at that one junction in the magazine, and it can potentially set those off when you're dealing with a bullet with a very large me-flat, particularly a solid. So he contacted with Starline, went to a small rifle primer. Interesting, going clear back to 1881, when the military looked at the 1881 Marlin for possible use in the service. Marlin specified, got to have a small rifle primer, and of course the military said no, it'll be fine, and they had magazine tube detonations because of the large primer. So anyway, it's old technology and converted right into modern stuff. But this is that's a very notable load. Of course, we have this load's going 2,075 feet per second with a 380 grain bullet. Very capable for heavy, large, dangerous game. As everybody probably knows that's watching this, Ruger's come out with the 1895 again, and great rifle, by the way. And it gobbles up heavy loads like these like it's nobody's business. It works really well. I've taken a lot of game with 4570. I know its potential, but that kind of saved Buffalo Bore because it all of a sudden they had cash flow. They weren't struggling with the 475 and 500 line ball, which are great cartridges but limited sales. And so moving on, we're gonna talk a lot about other loads that they offer. I'm of course very fond of most of the revolver loads. They work good in lever guns and appropriate revolvers. Buffalo Bore is a non-SAMI company, meaning that they're not governed by overall cartridge lengths. They are the ones that specify pressures and what guns particular loads are safe in. So it's really important before you buy Buffalo Bore ammo to know that your gun is suitable for whatever load they're offering. A good example would be they offer a +P +9 millimeter. You don't want to shoot that in guns that are not really set up for high pressure. Same thing with a 45 auto. If you're going to do that, you want heavier recoil springs and so forth. I'm going to shift gears a minute. We're going to go right to what I'm told is their most popular selling load in the entire product line, which there's hundreds of different products they make from small caliber handguns, even 25 auto. Can you believe that? They've tried to wake that cartridge up a little bit because many of the factory loads from other companies, I've actually tested those things. They are so weak, it's unbelievable. But I'm off subject. So. But they start there. They go clear up to, of course, the 500 Smith & Wesson, and in rifles, they, typically in the 223 right up to big bore, big calibers. They even are offering a line of double rifle cartridges and ammo right now. Another thing they're doing that some people will find interesting is Hornady, of course, brought us the 450 Marlin almost 25 years ago, but it's now dropped. It's discontinued. So Buffalo Bore's making a special run, and they're going to keep it in the product line where they're getting Bertram brass, and they're making it in popular bullet weights and so forth. So if you've got a Marlin, good cartridge by the way, but if you've got a Marlin or Winchester 94 and 450, you can keep shooting. They're also running 405 Winchester. They do some specialty loads that the other people have kind of forgotten about. But back to what I'm trying to get to today, the most popular round in their entire product line is the 10mm in what's known as a 220 grain outdoorsman load. It's a 220 grain cast, and they're advertising it at 1,200 feet per second. Now, it's a great load. I was testing it today in a Kimber just for velocities, and it was running on average about 1170. This gun's a little bit on the slow side, but that's still a potent load. And people that haven't shot a lot of big game with handguns as I have, it's important to understand that a 40 plus caliber bullet, hard cast or a solid, they're incredibly effective. They penetrate deep, they hit bones, they break bones and so forth. The 10mm's got a lot of attention for high capacity, for people carrying them in bear country, so forth. The 10mm's kind of a subject in itself. When it first came out, clear back in '83, Norma came out with a load, and their original load was a 200 grain jacketed bullet at 1,200 feet a second. And since then, it's kind of been all over the map in where people are willing to load it to. SAMI is still currently 37,500 PSI, so it's right up there, higher than a 357 or a 44 Magnum. But you want to make certain that the gun that you're using this load in, or any type full power 10mm, is properly supported in the barrel feed ramp. There's some that they're semi-unsupported, or that they're not well supported, and the gun begins to unlock where there's still enough pressure it can rupture the bottom of the case out. And so just something to be aware of. But meanwhile, most modern 10mm's are quite well supported, won't give you a problem. But this is a full power, no nonsense load, doing honest 1160, 1170 feet a second out of a 5-inch barrel. We'll probably test it later out of Model 610 Smith, just get some velocities for what it's doing. It's a respectably accurate load. I can't say it's the most accurate load I've shot, but it's plenty accurate for bear defense or hunting, whatever you'd like to do. But that's going to do it. We're going to cover more Buffalo Bore stuff later. A little bit of a background on the company, who they are, some of the loads they offer are interesting. But again, thanks for joining us today on Pearce Brothers, and we will see you soon.